Assalomu alaykum, yaxshimisizlar? Hammanglar yaxshi kelibsizlar. Uyg'urcha anlattım. Ana dilim Uygurca, eğitim dilim Çince, şu anda Türkçe kullanıyorum. Şimdi bu lisan dolayısıyla sorun dolayısıyla hazırlayamadım.
I couldn't prepare my slides because of my language issue. I will try to do my best in order to explain the situation. I think that there is nobody here who hasn't been to China because it's a place which arouses curiosity. I'm sure that many people have been to China, either for the purposes of a visit or else straight. The population is up to 1.5 billion, as you all know. It is the country with the largest population in the earth. These 1.5 billion people, almost two-thirds of them do consume cigarettes and alcohol, which is amounting up to 1 billion people. Well, I would like to explain the issue in China in two parts. There is this darkland China, which is where the Han Turks live, and Uyghur region is the place where 35 million of Uyghur Turks live. Darkly China, cigarette and alcohol is an issue, and we have to combat against it. In regards to drugs, there is this fact: in the 19th century, English and French do carry out an opium war, and 1 million people lost their lives because of the marijuana. The marijuana was banned in that respect, and the production of marijuana was also banned after this incident, because this was a bitter experience for the Chinese. And in Darkly China region, drugs is not consumed that much. However, drugs are produced, they are distributed, and there is a trial region, which is the Uyghur region for these drugs. And in the southern part of China, there is a state called Lübnan, and there are a few ethnicities living there. This Yunnan region of China, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and there is a free zone between these countries. No state owns it, and the most poisonous substance on earth is manufactured there. And the formulas are generated by Chinese. It is manufactured there, and then it is distributed throughout China. Smugglers bring in that poisonous substance, and they are distributed in the Uyghur region. And there is a ethnicity called Hui. They are the dealers. They sell these poisonous substances. They are so-called Muslims. Unfortunately, other Muslims consume this poisonous substance. So this is the bitter situation that we face. The western part of China and the eastern part of the Middle East, Central Asia, is the Chinese Uyghur autonomous region. 35 million of people live here. They are Uyghur Turks. And when we were small, young, alcohol and cigarette was not consumed. It was deemed to be really rude, especially with females. That was not a problem at all, because it was deemed as rude for women to smoke and drink. But from time to time, people used to gamble, and they used to smoke, but very seldomly, and also marijuana was a bit in consumption, because the southern part of Uyghur region It is produced there, and for a long time the state did not prohibit such a production cultivation. There is this Indian opium, cannabis actually, type of cannabis. It was produced there, and it is also used as a raw material in different substances. That's why it is produced there. So industry benefits from it, but of course the dealers also, or else the people there, consume it as well. In 1976, after Mao's death, a big transformation took place in China. At the beginning of 1970s and the beginning of 1980s, a huge change took place in China. Up till date, China was totally closed to the rest of the world. It only had a single fellow, which was Albania and Enver Hoxha. Apart from that, it had no connections with the rest of the world. After the 1980s, they started opening themselves to the rest of the world, and it was like a closed box, and many freedoms, of course, were limited. And they gave religious freedom in order to compensate the limitations which they had experienced beforehand. They also freed trade, and citizens started owning their goods, possessions. In the communist system, drugs were prohibited, and they were harshly prohibited actually. And after drugs were free, with this freedom process, also drugs were freed. Until 1987, there wasn't a customs law even. And after the issuing of the customs law, all the poisonous substances entering inside the country, its dissemination in the country was limited a bit thanks to the customs law. And after this process, different types of drugs were tried, and our people got used to it. In restaurants and coffees, explicitly marijuana, even heroin was available. The state was disregarding it, turning a blind eye to it. And cigarettes and alcohol was kind of even promoted, because when you open on the TV, when you open it on TV in Turkey, you would see a detergent advertisement. In our region, the moment that you turn on your TV, you would come across alcohol and cigarettes advertisement. In a restaurant, the main face of a restaurant's advertisement is alcohol and cigarettes. In China, alcohol and cigarette is under the monopoly of the state. The private sector does not operate in this sector, and even though it has a strict monopoly, they benefit from this freedom. And under the stairs, counterfeit alcohol and cigarettes manufacturing has increased. China manufactures alcohol a lot, and also cigarettes. And our region's tobacco is quality, and it consists a major part of the Chinese economy. So the state, of course, maybe does not come out and say you all smoke, but apart from that, it does anything and everything in order to promote cigarettes. So as this is free and our people went abroad, their eyes were opened, they went to Arabistan, they were on pilgrimage, and but as they were in China, remaining in China for many years, and their freedoms were limited, and they couldn't worship, they didn't know what was going on. But after they went out of China, they received religious education, and the tendency towards religion increased. Everybody started praying, worshipping, and the state also permitted for these people to go and do their prayers outside mosques. So, after this process, Islam the restaurants increased, which had no alcohol and cigarette at all. And they started competing. Many restaurants, and in our, for instance, region, the wedding ceremonies take place in casinos where they provide food and drinks, but their drinks were prohibited. I mean, not the state, the restaurants themselves prohibited after there was a tendency to Islamic religion. But the ones manufacturing alcohol and cigarettes find a way out because they were actually selling alcohol and tobacco in those restaurants themselves. After this prohibition in restaurants, what happened was that people were giving order from the restaurant for the alcohol to be delivered, and alcohol was delivered to restaurants even though the restaurant did not sell. And uh, once people came to the brim that they could not find the proper place in order to hold their wedding ceremony, even
Bahsettiğim bu şu anda bahsetmek olduğumuz beş şey yani içki, sigara,
alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, drugs.
şeyler yok.
At that time, there was no internet. Those four, they are haram in Islam. And after people gave up these harams, they started worshipping, praying, reading Quran. And then alcohol and cigarette manufacturers find out that they had to find another way. And in some local administrations, in local areas, people own small grocery stores. And the state obliged cigarettes and alcohol to be sold in those small grocery stores. And especially in places where religious men opened. In the month of Ramadan, they started organizing alcohol drinking competitions. The state explicitly evaluated the issue from an ideological point of view. And there are people who were even punished. Their restaurants were closed down because they were not selling alcohol and cigarettes.
Biz Çinliler biraz önce bahsettim galiba bu uyuşturucuya kendisi üretip dağıtıyor ama
Chinese people produce drugs themselves, but they do not consume it that much. They're sensitive. But when it comes to alcohol and cigarettes, in Chinese culture, the dining culture, they do not eat without alcohol. So first of all, alcohol comes to table, they take a sip, and men, male, female, daughter, son, they sit on the same table and they can drink all together. So they start off with drinks and they start drinking and eating their food. And there is another cultural trait. For instance, I have to do a work and I have to go to the public building or as a private building in order to have my taking care of my work. And the first thing that I do is to take out a cigarette packet, and offer a cigarette to the staff, for instance, who is guarding that building, for instance. This is the cultural. They don't even ask. They oblige people to smoke even. Here you are, they say. And if people say, no, I'm not going to smoke, I won't have it, they even throw the cigarette, that package, over on them so as for them to pick up a cigarette and smoke. So that's why cigarette is highly consumed in China. However, in the last couple of years in China, elite capitalist sect
O %10, %15 dinlerken üzerine 200 milyon insan var. O
emerged.
insanlar
They are about
kendilerini
150 to 200 million.
bunlar yani devletten mecbur
So
olmuşsa kendiliğinden
these
o şeyleri
people,
bırakıyorlar. Sigarayı bıraktılar.
they themselves
Sigaret
actually
bırakmayı
quit smoking,
entelelik olarak
and
görüyorlar.
they took this as an intellectuality.
Entelelik olarak görmeye başladılar. Dolayısıyla bunlar sigara kullanmıyor ve
They do not smoke, and they do not let others smoke in the workplace. This is not a state policy, by the way. And Chinese make their alcohol from rice, and the percentage is really high. The lowest is 50%. They've actually alleviated that image. They have reduced it down to 38%. Mostly they consume beer and wine. There is an improvement in this respect. So about the Green Crescent, what I would like to say is that 4 years ago, together with Yeşilay, the Green Crescent, we went there and we set up our organization. And the state, the government listed us.
Şimdi bizim bir Yeşilay'ın çok güzel bir sloganımız var.
We've got a really nice slogan. Green Crescent is all around the world.
Yeşilay Çin'de de olmalı diyoruz.
We say that the Green Crescent should also be in China. If it is in China, we believe that it is everywhere in the world. Because, as I have mentioned before, there are people up to 1 billion. Can we succeed? If yes, if we can work. Other participants are really lucky because your state, institutions, they all support you. The Green Crescent can easily act. You set your own Green Crescent associations. I would like you to succeed in more because you've got the means, but in our country we do not. Of course, what is important is to achieve what is impossible, what is difficult. If we do so, then this would be a real success. So for that reason,
Biz bu zamanda şöyle yapmışız. Atasyonu alt taraftan yani sonundan kesmeye çalışmışız. Şimdi anladım ki eğer bu faslı kesmek icap ederse baştan kesmek gerekiyor.
what we have to do is to solve the issue at its source.
Devletin resmi sigara içilir şeydir diye bir kanun yok.
The state does not prohibit smoking, and the society wants. Their awareness is also increasing. In darkly China, the technology addiction is becoming more aggravated, just like we've seen in the pictures. Mostly, we saw Chinese people. It's very aggravated, the situation. So for that reason, I have devoted my life to this addiction. Up till date, the Green Crescent tried to support me. And as long as Green Crescent supports me, I am willing to combat addiction until the end of my life. And I do believe that we would succeed in doing so in China. Thank you very much for listening to me. I got a bit emotional. Thank you very much.